soon as we're technologically connected, we will start the meeting. Yes, we're on?
Yes.
We're good?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon. The Information Technology, General Services, Government Affairs Committee will now come to order. We'll begin by announcing, based on the recommendation of Councilmember Zine, items 1 through 15. We'll go through this committee on consent. Is anybody here to speak on items 1 through 15? Public comment on items 1 through 15. People have been given the opportunity to speak. Nobody came forward. There are no cards on 1 through 15. So public comment on items 1 through 15 is now closed. With that, we approve items 1 through 15. Okay. Next, we go to item number 16.
And item number 16 is a motion, Perry Parks, relative to directing the Department of General Services to report on the Los Angeles Mall total operating costs and revenue.
Anybody here from GSD?
Reggie Jones Sawyer, Department of General Services, Asset Management Division. I was told that this committee was given some preliminary information on the operating costs of the mall. I do have a chart with me that kind of breaks down all of the operating costs for GSD as it pertains to the mall, and that involves building maintenance, custodial, landscaping, security and utilities, and some management staff costs. I can submit it to the committee so you could have it for your record. These are the latest costs that were just rolled up for me last week. But either way, the mall probably generates about $631,000 worth of revenue from the mall leases, but we still expend close to $968,000 in expenses to maintain the mall. And as many of you know, the mall was never really there to be a money generator. It was there to service the employees within the Civic Center. So I'll definitely leave this here with the committee so you can have it.
How much attention is given to the operators when they lease out space? I've never noticed this question, but I haven't read every inch of the contracts. We usually are looking at the price per square foot, what the operation is, et cetera, whether or not it was negotiated and it's a fair price. But it just dawned on me when you talk about it's not necessarily a money maker, but it's a service provision for this area. Do we request from any of the vendors as to whether or not they have a marketing plan to attract perhaps more foot traffic and more customers?
That's a good question. And no, we've never asked that. But I will tell you, recently, with the new vendors that have been coming in and with the economic downturn, many of them are actually doing their own marketing study before they come into the mall. Mm-hmm. And as we look at how to expand the mall, make it better, we've been told by the private sector that they really would want the City of Los Angeles to maybe to invest in a market study to prove to them that it would be a profitable venture to come into the mall. And that's something that General Services is looking to do, because as we start trying to lease out more and more space, it's becoming more and more difficult to get people to bid, because they can't see how they can make money in the mall.
And when it comes to the space overall, are we leased up more in the 70% range on average of a 12-month period, or are we more in the 80-90% leased up?
We're probably in the 70%. It could, if we are able to lease some things in the next few months, we'll get closer to 80. But we're still down way below what we should be.
So at 630-ish, and we spend about $900,000 to maintain and run the place. And if we're about 70%, at least if we were leased up, we'd probably get closer to the $800,000 perhaps. in that range, to where the gap is much smaller than the $270,000 gap. And I know that's not a hard figure year to year, but based on 631 versus 900,000, we have about a $270,000 annual gap. So for us to close that gap, I think that it would behoove us to, and I understand GSD, how do you pay for a market study with the money left over?
Right.
There is no money left over. You're already in the red. So paying for market studies is, people don't do them for free. Unless, for example, we got lucky and maybe some professor at UCLA wanted to take it up as and even USC. If some professor wanted to take it up as some kind of project, in essence, our benefit pro bono, but them to be able to have access to the books, et cetera, so they can do some kind of study, maybe some kind of study looking at a big city like ours, a downtown operation owned by government, operated mostly by individual individual private providers, and to see whether or not that's something worth looking into. Maybe we can get a study for free that way and really get some real honest results and look at ourselves and see what options we really should exercise in order to increase revenue, and then so that we're not in the red anymore. Any questions, Mr. Zine?
Well, I will say that the place looks dumpy. It hasn't been maintained. And early 70s, and I would question what improvements have been made over the last 30 years. So if you have it where it's nice, people will venture there, especially on a bright sunny day. But the place just looks dumpy. And that's one of the problems why you're not going to attract business to the location. The restaurants that have been there for years. We haven't really brought in any new except that one pita place and Robux. Other than that, everything else is just the status quo. So I think if you want to market it, you don't have to do a big study. You just look there and say, who's going to go there and purchase a product? Normally food, it's the lunch crowd. There's hardly anyone there for breakfast. There's no dinner crowd there. So you're serving the Civic Center. But I've had concerns about that for a long time. There was a lady who was in charge of it. Do you remember that lady's name? Very frustrated.
Several. Joy O'Brien?
Joy, yeah. Is she still with the city?
Yes, she still works.
She was very frustrated with the fact she couldn't seem to get any kind of money to clean it up, to make it look nicer for people that venture over there. And the other question I have, this was submitted January 26 by Councilmember Perry and Councilmember Parks, asked to report back in 45 days, and it's been 7 months. Do you know what took so long to get the response to this?
It's my understanding from my assistant general manager that he did report on this while I was away. I'd been away for a little bit, and he said it was reported either in May or April, and I don't know what he reported on because obviously I wasn't here, but hopefully the document that I present today will fully answer all the questions. And as far as marketing, also part of that marketing study, it will also look at the tenant mix, for example. We have tenants that are city tenants that are in there that may not help with that.
So they're occupying square footage, and they're not necessarily adding to that 631,000.
Or adding to what you're talking about, adding to the value of attracting people in.
Well, there used to be a deli and the elevators.
I remember the
It was a
deli.
great place, and they closed it. I don't know what they turned it into, but that seemed to be a nice place for people to venture into.
It was closed and then it was used for city operations.
Okay, and I don't know what it's used for now, but when you have a place that's generating business and people are venturing into it, but you've got a couple hamburger stands, it's really nothing that you want to take a guest to have lunch there. And I don't know if we're in the same situation with Alvaro Street, where if you look at the rents that they're paying, substandard rents, versus what's happened with Alvaro Street, with the substandard rents that they've been paying, and all of a sudden it was jacked up an incredible amount of money. But there's obviously work to be done on it. But I would say that if you have it look nice and you've got good quality food there, people are going to venture there. They're going to come from the police administration building. Folks go to the Caltrans building to eat, where they have a cafeteria. And we don't have a commissary or anything here at City Hall anymore. They closed that up on the second floor, which is another item on the agenda. So people want to get something out of City Hall. The only place to go that's close is across the street. And if we would bring in some other businesses.
Yeah. No, we agree with you, but to do what you're asking would require a lot of money, and we've tried many many different ways to attract a developer, for example, to come in, maybe do a ground lease, and they wouldn't have to pay a huge amount of rent for X amount of years, so that if they invest $5 million, $10 million, $20 million into making that place a destination place, we'd be able to do that. And again, those type of individuals have asked us to do a market study, because the way it's done, you do a market study to explain why it's profitable for them to come in there and to do that kind of investment. And so hopefully we'll be able to defer some of the money that we get from the revenue, because right now all of it goes back into the general fund. General services doesn't get any of that back to us to either use for doing a market study or anything of that nature.
General
We used to be able to get all that money back to us to help with custodial building maintenance and things of that nature, and so that we could spiffy up the place.
So who maintains it now? Who maintains the?
It's done by general services staff, which has been woefully depleted, as you know.
Which makes it look tacky, and that's
Which
why.
makes it even more difficult to do.
Well, if you look at Pitfire Pizza right down the street, I've never been there. Place is a
been.
booming business, and they'd be a great venue for that. I mean, anything that would add a different flavor, because it's the same food that they've had for, I mean, many, many years. It hasn't been any turnover. So, do you ever go there?
We agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, basically what we're doing is we're talking to GSD about what really is policy decisions on behalf of the council in allotting the amount of money in order for us to either upgrade it or pay for a market study or what have you. So we got, the chicken and the egg going on right here. I mean, do we invest the money and take that gamble, and then if it pays off, everybody can look like geniuses? Or do we spend that kind of money and then find out that, okay, it goes up to, $750,000 once it's all up and running real nice and looking pretty, but it never really makes the mark where it actually makes money or even starts to replenish wherever we got that money from. I agree with your frustrations, Mr. Zine, but at the same time, remember this as well. When you're a vendor and you're leasing property on a 30-day basis on a given month, but really, you're leasing it for 30 days a month, but you're really only getting customers 20 days out of the month. And you're not even getting customers the full 20 days. You're only getting customers 2 out of the 3 benchmark timelines for retail. You're getting 20 days a week, not 30, right? Not Saturdays and Sundays, because it's dead over here. And then on top of that, you don't even have a dinner opportunity either, or a nighttime opportunity, because everybody goes home about 5:30, your customer base. So the fact of the matter is, the bottom line, Mr. Zine, is it was probably not the best idea for us to even venture into this operation decades ago, and yet we're looking at ourselves and staff frustrated that we have a business model that might not even work, no matter how pretty we make it look.
But people do go to Caltrans for breakfast and for lunch. That place, the cafeteria, which I visited, and they're opening up a new restaurant at the police administration building across the street, which could draw more business away from the mall. More business that's going there now. So, I mean, it's a huge task. And looking at the motion, they're looking at the revenues, the operating expense. It's already running in the negative, and the chairperson recommends that study. But if an institution, SC or one of the local institutions could do that.
Yeah, let's reach out.
Projects.
Let's reach out. I mean, we got to get creative, right? I mean, we're not giving you guys money to do a study. You don't have any money left over in your department that I'm aware of for a study. And if you say, yeah, I'm going to ask you to use it for something else because I got my other ideas. So have somebody from your department reach out and let's talk to some of the, the graduate schools around here and see if they can actually do something with us. I mean, I think it's an interesting venture to study from that vantage point, because it's government owned, it's privately operated with the individual's facilities. It's got that 2/3, as I just described it, 2/3, 20 days out of 30 months that they get to operate, and then on a given day they're only doing 2/3 as well, because they're not doing the evening business, right? So I think it's a great opportunity, especially when everybody's looking at economics right now and what the country's going through. Or maybe some economics professor or government professor to actually see if they got a little bit of opportunity to to study it for us and then give us some results.
And that's exactly it. A market study would do that. It's say, there's a,
A market study is just an honest,
Right.
it's just an honest assessment. That's all it is. No bells and whistles, no
Right.
trying to make anybody happy, no frills. It's just saying, look, this is what you got. I got good news and I got bad news. It's never going to work, and this is why. Or it can work if you do these things. Or the chances of it working, even if you do these things, are X, Y, Z, and that's what a market study is, right?
correct.
Okay. But we are not allotting you money to do that. At least, I don't know where we would get the money if we would do that, but perhaps that kind of partnership with one of our universities. We've got some tremendous universities. Some people say USC is awesome. I don't know. Maybe they'll step up. I know UCLA is awesome, but so we'll see. Maybe one of them.
I might know a couple of people at SC.
Hopefully, we don't have to go to Orange County.
No.
Get maybe UC Irvine to do
Go
it
to
or
Malibu,
something.
Pepperdine.
Or one of the private institutions further away. Okay. Any more questions from the
No, this is good.
Okay. And so, Mrs. Sawyer, we're going to take that as part of your report, the written materials that you're turning in?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, anybody here for item number 16 on public comment? Seeing and hearing nobody come forward for public comment on 16. Public comment on 16 is now closed. With that, we'll approve the motion with the verbal and written report.
So they can report back to this committee? Back to the committee?
Oh, okay, yeah, and also fortify that, the documents that you talked about today, and then come back to committee with the written report.
Okay.
Okay. I know you have some with you, but I don't know in what form it is. Put the cover letter on it, explain it to us, because sometimes we need a little bit of help. All right? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll go to item number 17 now.
And item number 17 is a motion, Rosendahl Reyes, relative to directing the Department of General Services and the CAO to report on the feasibility of charging a $7 fee for guest parking at City Hall, City Hall East, and other city parking facilities.
Good afternoon, Melody McCormick from the Department of General Services. We were asked to provide a report back to the committee on a potential range of fees for visitor parking at our 5 visitor parking facilities. And for clarification, these include City Hall East Employee Garage. They also include Piper Tech, Lot 7, which is over on Judge John Iso Street, and the Brady Garage in the San Fernando Valley. The fees that were initially discussed range from $4, which would generate approximately $640,000 in revenue, to $7 that would generate over $1.1 million, and that's based on an average of 160,000 visitors per year. The report initially to Budget and Finance had also included a one-time purchase of a handheld reservation system and revenue control system for $180,000 that could be funded by the revenue generated and phased in. Unlike our commercial parking facilities, these 5 do not currently have any revenue control equipment with which to process fee payments for parking. At last month's Budget and Finance Committee, we were also then asked to develop a recommendation for a tiered system that would continue to allow a small percentage of unpaid parking for departments and for council offices, and that would establish categories for both paid and for unpaid parking.
So that last part that you just described, we may have to use like that sticker program where you go to an office and they give you little stickers?
No, we're not actually with this recommending a validation program where we would sell validation booklets to, say, for example, your office, and then you would choose who it is that you would want to pay for parking with. What we are recommending is that we would continue with this automated system that we will be purchasing. The person in your office who is authorized to request parking would continue to do so through the reservation system. We would establish a set number, perhaps by percentage, perhaps by category, of unpaid parking passes that would be available, and that would be automatically tracked in the system and reported back to each office. Those who would be paying for parking would be paying directly to us for their parking, and that would also, again, be tracked through the system.
Now, you gave a figure of $180,000 in hard costs for equipment, et cetera, automated system, I think you
Correct.
called it. But what other costs on top of, over and above today's cost, would we be incurring?
Once the system is purchased, there's a $3,000 annual cost for the data lines because it does have to be connected to the software server. And then there's also approximately an $800 maintenance fee on the equipment. And those are the ongoing costs.
But there would not be any additional men or women hours or time to invest in this new system?
No, there's currently one parking attendant at the entry gate to each of these facilities. That parking attendant would need to remain because they would have to obviously interface with visitors that are coming in to clear them through the system. And this system that we are discussing here would be operated by that same attendant.
Now, how would people pay? By check, by credit card, cash?
The handheld system,
That person will now be acting more like a private facilities where they're charging everybody to come in, which means that they would have to have a register. They would have to have means of which people could pay. I would hate for us to recommend that we only use credit cards, and then all of a sudden, heaven forbid, somebody from the valley comes and they don't have credit cards, they just have cash, and all of a sudden they should be parking under this building because they contacted Mr. Zine's office, and sure enough, they're welcome to come and park there, and they're willing to pay their $4 or $7. Then all of a sudden, the attendant says, "I'm sorry, we can't accommodate you."
Now, the handheld system that we are recommending as part of this proposal will accept cash. It will also accept credit cards. And in the event, as with any parking facility, if someone has neither, then they are provided with a promise to pay. And we take down their information, and they are sent a bill with which to send back in their parking fee.
So that we don't have right now for these particular parking?
For these 5 facilities, no, they're currently employee parking facilities. We have no revenue control equipment.
But that's my point. Where's the analysis on how much it would cost for that follow-through, for example, of the people who can't pay, generating that paperwork, letting them know they owe us $4 or $7? Trust me, just the moment we pass into that place of no man's land, we've already spent more than $4 to $7 per transaction just to go ahead and try to track that money.
The system costs $35 per facility, okay, and then once it is processed, we are not requesting any additional staff in order to process the fee transactions. If it's done by credit card, it happens in real time to the bank. We already have an existing accounting clerk that can track that revenue electronically through the system. And we currently do operate paid parking facilities in the Civic Center, so we currently do have staff available to do cash drops and to do deposits as needed at the facilities within the Civic Center. We currently do have a supervisory hub out in the valley as well for the Brady Garage. So we're not requesting any additional staff in order to implement this program.
And who's we?
The Department of General Services Parking Services Division. We operate 33 facilities for the city. 10 of them are GSD controlled. The others we operate for El Pueblo, for the Department of Transportation, for the Library Department, and Pershing Square for Recreation and Parks.
And you have a written delineated report for us on some of the answers to the questions I just asked?
We had initially presented, we've had 2 reports so far on this issue that went to Budget and Finance Committee. We are currently preparing a second report out of the last Budget and Finance Committee meeting before this goes to Council. And yes, we can include the answers to those questions in that report.
So by and large, what you're saying right now, other than the 180,000 and the little bit per month, that's the only related cost that you can report?
Correct. We would be utilizing the existing staff that is currently within the parking facility.
So this looks like, based on that, those numbers, this looks like a revenue generator.
Correct.
Opportunity.
The original proposal that came to us from Budget and Finance back when the budget was being deliberated in April, that was its intent, was to generate revenue.
Mm-hmm. And who would determine the $4, $5, and $6, and $7 rate?
We had initially in our report had recommended a rate between $4 and $5. When this motion came back to us for this report, it actually stated $7. So we have a range of options. I will say that market rate in this area for this type of parking is typically around $5.
Unless you're parking under City Hall. I think that's probably a premium.
Currently, it's free, unless you're an employee.
No, I'm just saying, if you're going to park under City Hall and your purpose is to come to City Hall, I would think that, since there's no other parking in City Hall other than that one, that would probably be the only logical premium that $7 makes sense. Otherwise, people would go, to the path of least resistance.
Right, and we could take a look at perhaps, some different costs, one for City Hall, one for City Hall East. But at this point, I think we're trying to keep the visitor fee consistent across city facilities.
People in the valley still don't believe that they should be paying for parking anywhere. What's the rate that's charged out in Van Nuys? You mentioned one of these facilities in Van Nuys.
The rate analysis out in the Van Nuys area is about the same, to come to any of these small facilities in the area would typically cost around $5, say, for a 2-hour visit. We do have the San Fernando Valley Garage that is right around the corner from the Browdy Garage, and we have tiered parking at that facility. There's a certain fee per every 20 minutes with a maximum rate of $16.
Any questions?
Well, the city employee is going to retire, 40 years of service. We invite him down to get a resolution before council. We're going to charge him $7 to come get a resolution before council.
That was something that we had discussed in Budget and Finance, and again, we were asked to come back with a tiered system, and that is one of the examples that we would take a look at. For example, if someone were to be in that top tier, if someone were to be provided with an award at City Council, they would be provided with complimentary parking for their vehicle. If they want to bring 50 to 100 people with them to observe the award, then we would need to discuss perhaps those vehicles would be willing to pay the parking fee. There would also be in that category, for example, city employees who work at field facilities who need to come down for a couple of hours at the end of their day in their personal vehicle. That would also be in that category. Others that would not under this new system would say perhaps be vendors or visitors that departments call in for a variety of reasons.
Actually, if I remember the originator of the motion, one of his comments was that why should lobbyists park in City Hall for free? So I think that's one of the targets here, which is lobbyists.
Well, I did a motion a few years back, and it was geared toward lobbyists, that they would get some identification card and they would pay for parking. It would be an annual fee, and then it was changed to a frequent visitor program where they would get some identification and they would have parking, but they'd be paying an annual fee for that. And I don't know whatever happened with that proposal, but it was to try and take care of the people who come here frequently, whether they're a lobbyist or a union director, whatever the case may be, and they would pay $500 a year or $300 a year, whatever. They would then have that covered with an access card that would give them, the security police at the front know who they are, that maybe they don't have to go check their bags as they do everyone else. Whatever happened with that program?
I'm not familiar with that particular program. I will say that we do have lobbyists that come to us regarding a parking permit, and we are willing to sell, and many of them do purchase a parking permit at the City Hall commercial garage, which is right next door underneath the Los Angeles Mall. And many of them are willing to pay market rate. We do know that there are some offices who regularly call in parking for lobbyists, but again, we don't at the moment, without a system, we don't have the capability to track how many times they're coming in and who's calling in what lobbyists.
We need to find out where that motion is, Mr. Chris Olson, because there was a motion that was prepared for this particular subject, and it started with lobbyists, then it went to frequent visitors, just for that purpose.
Okay.
So if you're a lobbyist, you have to register by law, and while you register, there would be a fee attached that would give you that privilege to park. They're going to charge their clients anyway, so
Right.
It's not going to come out lobbyist or the frequent visitor. Their clients are going to pay that tab. The other question I have is how many cars, have we done an analysis to see how many cars actually park, whether it's called by a council officer, a lobbyist, a
Yes,
visitor, whatever?
we do have that analysis. We have approximately 160,000 visitors that come through every year. 110,000 of those are primarily at City Hall and City Hall East Employee Garage. Of those, approximately 40% of those are called in by council offices. Approximately 10% of those are individuals who come here for special events. And then the other 50% are called in by departments.
And then what about Fig Plaza and the Department of Public Works building? Do they pay for parking? Do they charge for parking at those facilities?
We don't manage those parking facilities, but yes, my assumption is because that's a private parking operator that they are paying for parking.
So people who go there to get a permit pulled, whatever, they're going to pay paying for parking?
That's my understanding. At one point, the Department of Building and Safety did have a validation program, and under the validation ordinance, I believe that that has ceased.
Okay, that's what I understand. And would it be the same as Public Works down on Broadway?
I'm not familiar with what arrangement they made, but under the validation policy, it would be unusual under that ordinance to have the Public Works Department validating parking for anyone. So my assumption is that they're paying for parking.
Like in the Van Nuys Civic Center where you have your office, can public park there too? No. So there's a fee for that? So I think it would probably be consistent to have it at all the venues that the city operates. And when you go to Universal Studios or some other venue, it's all automated now. You go to shopping, it's automated. You don't
Right.
have to you have maybe one person, but you have to pay for that ticket before you come out. Have we looked into that automated process to keep the human hands off of it?
We have automation proposals that we have developed for all of our parking facilities, and yes, they have been submitted. They have yet to this date been funded.
If you recall, there was a scandal at LAX with the parking folks a few years back. There was a scandal at Olvera Street with the parking revenues that were disappearing. So if we were to do something, we should probably do it to keep the human hands off the money, and that way it keeps everybody honest.
We do have automation proposals for the facilities that we manage, and yes, El Pueblo is one of them. El Pueblo came to us in 2004 after that scandal, and we installed revenue control equipment at that location. They're heavily audited, and to date, we've not had any major issues. We do have a secondary automation proposal for El Pueblo as well.
Did you have some comment on that?
Yeah. Hold on one second. You mentioned you were giving us some figures about 40% were from council offices?
Correct.
How come you didn't mention how much of that is from the mayor's office, asking for requested parking for their visitors?
We didn't count it at this point,
That makes the balance.
so. I think the line item on it was 40% from elected officials' offices, so, I mean, it meant,
Okay, you made my point. So, because people are listening to this, and people sometimes assume that council offices are just willy-nilly letting people park because they're their friends or because they're lobbyists or what have you. So from now on, when you're making your presentation on this matter, could you just refer to elected offices?
Okay.
Because I'm sure the controller's office and, there are other elected officials around here, but, since people have public comment opportunity with the council, we tend to get the brunt of, silly ideas that people think that, it's the council members, not anybody else that has certain habits or certain practices. Although we all have the practice, all elected offices have the practice of saying, there's going to be a blue car coming in, I have a meeting with that person, somebody from our office or the mayor's office or controller or city attorney's office says, please let that person park. And they do, and appropriately so during our current system. Okay.
And just one more fact is that we, as council members and city staff, all pay to park here at City Hall. It's not free for us. So we're all
Correct.
My paycheck.
We're all paying.
Correct.
Anyone who's assigned to the central city, the civic center is paying, whether it's a council member or staff that has the privilege to park, they're all paying somewhere. Do you know what the fee is, annual fee, or the monthly fee now?
$50.50 a month.
$50 a month. Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Frank Pazakis, Department of General Services, Office of Public Safety. In regard to your question about the frequent visitor program, we did submit a report back on that. It was probably approximately 2 years ago. And that included fees, traffic studies, background checks, vetting of the individuals. And we actually have a new technology that we're going to start implementing in about 7 different city facilities, which will accommodate a frequent visitor type program, reservation system for all city offices and in those facilities, and also can be tied into the parking program as well.
Was that generated from my motion on that frequent?
Yes.
Okay. So we are moving forward with something.
Well, we submitted the report on that, on the actual frequent visitor program. We never got any feedback following that, but we are moving forward on a separate technology which will accommodate all of the requests that are part of that frequent visitor program.
Okay, so we don't need to regenerate anything. It's all in the works. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Very good.
See, they're listening to you, Mr. Zhang.
And talking about parking is one more issue that's come up a number of times. Is water. I know you don't control water and power, but people who went to the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion used to be able to park at Water and Power at night since there's very few
Right.
employees. And they've banned parking there, saying it's a security risk, a security hazard. I find it interesting that we can park people at City Hall East at these venues under these precious buildings, but we can't do it in an empty lot at night at Water and Power. They banned it, and people are willing to pay $10 to park their car there because there's not a lot of parking around that pavilion, which is just another avenue to raise dollars to help offset.
Well,
some of
if the surface were flat between our facility and there, we'd be willing to charge, to take $10 a night
And people are
for
more,
parking here at City Hall or City Hall East Commercial.
we could shuttle them over there and take that money because.
We do market these facilities when there are events in the Civic Center in the evenings, and then, of course, Lot 7 is open every evening and throughout the weekends because we market it to the Little Tokyo community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, is this going to another committee?
No, Budget and Finance has completed their consideration,
What'd they say?
adopted the motion recommendations, and asked the report to be submitted at council consideration.
But we haven't figured out how we're going to handle the fee rate? How's that going to be determined? Who pays $4, who pays $5, who pays $6, who pays $7?
We are currently working on developing that recommendation, and of course, it would be submitted to your offices prior to us going to council.
All right. Okay. Pending those recommendations, that will go to the elected officials' offices. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 17 for public comment? I do not have any public comment cards on item number 17. No one coming forward. Therefore, public comment on 17 is now closed. So with that, we will hear this in council once we have those details approved. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 18.
And item number 18 is a motion, Koretz Han Cardenas, relative to directing the Department of General Services to report on the status of the request for proposal for a food vendor for the second floor of City Hall.
You know, Mr. Sawyer, how is it that a building like this, with hundreds of people working 9 to 5 all week, how is it that a facility like this, we've been having a problem keeping a vendor? We're a captive audience. What seems to be the issue? Does anybody know why we're not keeping a vendor for very long?
And you mean in City Hall? In City Hall?
On this item, right? The
It's
second floor?
about the second floor,
My understanding is the second
Giuliano's.
floor or something like that, there used to be, back in the day, there used to be another vendor.
It's the same vendor, Giuliano's.
Okay.
Okay, and
It went from 2 facilities to 1 to none now?
on the 10th floor, there's not a whole lot, on this floor, there wasn't a whole lot of traffic. They thought that we would have a lot of committee meetings, that as people got off the elevator, they would go directly to there, have a coffee before they came in, or have their lunch before, and it just didn't happen.
It's a bigger venue, it's a sit-down and all
Yeah.
that, bigger space, but
And that's why
Second floor
the
is
10th floor.
full-time.
The second floor, I believe they're having more problems than just here. Giuliano's has a big operation in the San Pedro area. The economy has been hard on everyone, and Giuliano's has not been immune to that, and they just could not support the staff that's needed here to continue the operation. And that's what they told us, that they couldn't support that staff either here or in City Hall East. Right now, we have an RFP out to fill both spaces. The one for City Hall is due on the 29th. We've had a lot of inquiries, and we'll see how many actually show up or how many bids we get in on the City Hall site. But this economy has been tough on a lot of people. And whatever marketing paradigm that they came in with the fewer and fewer city employees here, it has not been very easy on a lot of our vendors around here.
What is the facility like when it comes to the kitchen? Do they bring everything in just kind of like a coffee shop? The coffee shop, basically all they do is heat water, is what they do, so they don't have a real kitchen where you have all the venting requirements, and which is a different requirement than just a coffee shop. What is
That's
the
correct.
kitchen like on this facility on the second floor?
That is correct. It's, they package, Giuliano's was perfect for this site. They packaged their own foods and they were able to bring it in, so they didn't have to do any preparing of food here. So they just had to have hot and cold potable water, but they weren't doing any baking here. And that was done at their bakery, which is a very fine bakery in San Pedro. They were able to package all that food and bring it here. The rest were pastries and things of that nature that they brought in fresh every day.
So is that what the kitchen accommodates? Basically somebody who's going to bring it in and they just keep it warm or keep it cold here?
Yes, and I think the people who have been looking at doing this, and I'll give an example, we've been requested by the Homeboy Bakeries, for example. They have, again, another group that has a wonderful operation that actually does baking, so they can just, all they have to do is bring in their food stuff here. They don't have to bake it here. And then they believe that the coffee drives the business and that there'll be enough coffee generated that people will buy the accessories to that.
Okay. And it's one RFP or two RFPs?
One for City Hall and one for City Hall East.
So two separate RFPs?
Two separate RFP.
So one person could bid both, but when they bid, they're not bidding both.
Correct.
Okay. Non-automatic. And so what's the status?
The one that's due, September 29th is the one that's due for this building, City Hall. And we have the one lone closed bid for City Hall East sitting on my desk right now. And we're going to open that sealed bid tomorrow with the review staff.
So we got one bidder.
One bid. Out of all, probably we've had about 4 or 5 different entities that have shown some interest. But when we put the RFP out, all we got back was one closed bid.
Have you ever seen what an RFP that the city generates involves? You understand why people don't want to bid. It's a very cumbersome process.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but
Well, that's one of the problems.
Yeah.
It's very cumbersome.
and
And that's why a lot of people say it's not worth the hassle. Have we looked at nonprofits to see if a nonprofit would be willing to take some of that and generate the service, whether coffee or refreshments? I know the snacks that we used to have in council no longer exist, but something in a nonprofit category?
well, that's why I mentioned the Homeboy Bakery is one of those nonprofits that actually looked at both sites, and we've given them extensive tours of both sites.
And what'd they say? No,
I haven't,
thank you.
I don't know yet. I won't
So
know.
far they haven't bid east, right?
They haven't put a bid in?
I don't know. The one bid that we have, it's sealed, and I don't know who it's
So
from.
when it's sealed, you don't even know who it's from?
I won't open it until tomorrow, with the committee, and we have very strict rules about,
Come on,
you know,
open it.
me opening it and contaminating
Envelope
it.
up to see. You see that
No,
big Starbucks symbol up there?
No, we take this process fairly seriously.
Well, you should.
Yes.
But one bid, I mean, whatever they bid.
Yeah, but
But if, let's say the bid, as the committee meets, and they find that it doesn't meet standards, they could say they did put certain
put it back
paperwork
out to
in.
bid. They could put it back out to bid.
Meanwhile,
We
they-
don't
yeah.
have to take the only bidder.
No, we don't.
What if they bid 0? They say, well, we'll pay you nothing.
Right, then, yeah, we go back out to bid.
And that takes a few months.
And how long was that bid open?
The bid open for the process, for about 30 days,
Okay. And it ends tomorrow?
then it's tomorrow.
At what time?
No, it ends the 29th. Wait, it ends
So
tomorrow.
when you-
No, I'm
for
sorry.
East.
The bid, no, City Hall East, we open tomorrow. We received it last week. I'll open it tomorrow.
But conceivably, they have until tomorrow to turn them in?
No, that time
Oh,
limit
that
is
day closed.
closed.
Okay. All right. So tomorrow's a drum roll.
What do we charge them a square foot?
That's part of the negotiations. We'll see what they've offered
What do
in
we
the
hope to
bid.
get?
Hopefully north of $2 a square foot.
About $2 a square
Yeah.
foot is what we're guesstimating the market will bear?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the process for the City Hall facility on the second floor, that just started on the 1st of September? I mean, the process, or, I mean, the
Yeah.
bidding
At the end of August, yeah, so
the end of August?
the end of August.
So that one's just over 30 days.
Yeah, we just need to see what comes in.
Okay. All right.
Just one more item.
Go ahead.
They used to have a kiosk out in front of City Hall East. Is that the one you're talking about? And they went,
No.
they
No,
closed?
no, I'm talking about on the first floor, City Hall East, where Giuliano's used to be, you could get coffee.
Okay, but there was a kiosk out,
And there are 2 kiosks out front.
yeah,
And
are those been rented out, or?
one has been rented out. It's been rented to a banking entity whose name escapes me.
To a what?
For ATM,
Oh, ATM, okay.
paying close to $7 a square foot.
And then what's the other one? Still vacant?
It's still vacant. We're working on that one.
That used to be a restaurant, if I'm not mistaken.
I think restaurant's a little stretch.
Well, Mr. Chris Olson used to eat there all the time.
It's a food dispensary.
You liked it, Mr. Olson? Good burritos, okay. They closed before I ever got there, so that's why I mentioned that. Okay, Mr. Kearns,
Okay.
we beat that one up.
All right, anybody here to speak on item 18? Seeing and hearing nobody, come forward on item 18 for public comment. Public comment is now closed on item 18. With that, this committee adopts the motion. On item 18, we go to item 19.
And item 19 is a city attorney report and an ordinance relative to amending the Los Angeles Administrative Code to extend the expiration date of the Office of Public Safety Oversight Committee by 5 years.
What do you expect to accomplish by getting 5 more years?
Civilian oversight for our police department, having input from the 4 main client departments that the Office of Public Safety serves, and then also the 5th member and the current president of the committee is from the Los Angeles Police Department. So basically, LAPD has the ability to make sure that we adhere to our agreement with them and how we go about doing our police operations and our security operations.
No, sounds good to me.
All right. With that, we're on item number 19. Is there anybody here to make public comment on item number 19? Seeing and hearing nobody, come forward on item 19 for public comment. Public comment is now closed. With that, we adopt the draft ordinance to amend LAAC 22.545.1.
And as an alumni of Pepperdine, I'd like to volunteer our business department services for doing that study.
It's appreciated. That's a little bit outside our city, but we'll take what we can get. Thank you.
That's
What are they called? The waves or something? What's the waves? All right. Thank you.
Over in Malibu.
Okay, we'll move to item number 20.
And item number 20 is a report from the Department of General Services in response to motion Reyes-Garcetti relative to recommendations for supporting the efforts of the Clean Car Wash campaign.
Curtis,
When was this motion submitted?
June 4th, 2010.
June 4th, 2010.
Yeah.
So this is version 2. Because I remember when I got on the council about 7 years ago, shortly thereafter, there was a motion similar to that. Okay, go ahead.
Curtis Watts, Department of General Services, Supply Services Division. Yeah, historically, the council has advocated for the Clean Car Wash campaign and the city's car wash facilities to come to an agreement regarding labor practices for their employees. So recently, council submitted a motion suggesting that all car wash facilities that service the city of Los Angeles sign a clean car wash agreement. And this is the Department of General Services is suggesting that, or recommending that we work with the city attorney to come up with an ordinance to require that vendors sign this clean car wash agreement to service the city's car wash fleet. And the Department of General Services will monitor and implement and enforce the ordinance once it's completed. At present, the city doesn't have a contract with any local car wash vendor.
So this would be in the case of, if we did go out to utilizing a vendor, we would have these standards.
Well, we don't have any plans to contract with any vendor. Currently, any department that uses car wash facilities procures their own, car wash services. And we don't plan to have a vendor because previous contracts, the dollar amounts were low, and it's in our procurement staff determined it's in the city's best interest not to have a contract for those particular services.
Yeah, but you can never know. In the next budget cycle, we could cut the budget for those services in-house and then find ourselves having to go to third parties. Either that or everybody's going to drive around in dirty vehicles.
Yeah, at present, the city departments do utilize third-party car wash facilities to get their car wash services. We just don't have a contract for the services.
So they just do it on an ad hoc basis, on a day-to-day basis?
Right, they use blanket, or what we call a blanket authority, blanket purchase orders to go out and procure those services.
So this motion would actually require us to have those agreements going forward, should this motion pass?
No, it wouldn't require that.
So this motion does what?
It would
report?
require any facilities that city departments utilize to sign a clean car wash agreement. So if they were to go out and, utilize a vendor to get their cars washed, they would have to have that vendor sign this clean car wash agreement in order to, service the city and receive payment from the city.
Okay, so this motion, should it pass, would require that change.
Yes.
So in other words, if they continue to do business with somebody that they've been doing in day-to-day business with, that entity would find themselves having to sign something from the city, this clean car wash document, and
Correct.
they could continue to receive our business.
Correct.
And if they refuse to sign it, then they wouldn't.
You're right.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, Mr. Zai?
Well, I get my car washed at the police station, and I see DOT and fire department getting their car washed at the police station. I don't know how many car washes the city operates other than police stations, but I find it interesting that we go to a private car wash, and I don't know who's paying for that, coming out of city fees. It seems a lot more reasonable if we would use an existing city facility. There's 21 police stations plus central facility at 22. These 22 facilities that have car washes, why wouldn't we direct them to use an existing city car wash instead of going out and spending $5, $6, $7, $10 at a private car wash?
John Strickgoda with Department of General Services. Councilman Zine, we do agree with you. We did have one contract set up, and that contract was canceled 2 years ago, I believe. And we do.
How much are we paying for a car wash?
I don't know the exact dollar amount. I can definitely look into that and get back to you. But we did include a report on annual expenditures that's attached to the response, and the dollar amount was around $72,000, if I recall, for all car washes. What's important about that is the majority of that dollar figure was for truck washes, and those are required by BIT inspections, California BIT inspections. These were mobile car wash or truck operators, truck washers that would go out to various maintenance yards and clean the vehicles so that maintenance personnel can do the repair work required. So when you back out the $50,000 or so for the mobile truck wash, there was about $20,000 to $25,000 spent annually. When you look at the various facilities in the city that have car wash machinery, there's not a whole lot of them that I'm aware of. We can certainly look into that, but we found that with the far-reaching operations of the city, it was difficult for people from the valley to come downtown to get their car washes here in City Hall.
That's what I'm saying, with the 22 police facilities.
I don't believe they all have a car wash.
Yeah, they do.
Do they?
I don't know of any of them that don't. Whether it goes from wet, they're not all automated. Some still have that, you get the brush out and you'd wash it by hand.
Could be.
But the newer ones have all, state-of-the-art automated, and it even has this no spot rinse. So I just thought that $73,000 is $73,000 we could use to maybe hire a couple people.
Well, again, the majority of that was for mobile truck wash.
Okay? Not people washing their Prius and their
No.
those types of cars.
No. No, off-road equipment, heavy-duty equipment, that type of thing.
Okay. Does this include water and power? Or
No,
that's,
no.
What about airport
No.
and
No
harbor?
proprietaries, no.
Because they got heavy equipment, the water and power, and also...
That's correct.
Okay. Okey-doke. Thank you.
Okay, good idea. Anybody here to speak on item number 20? Seeing nobody come forward, no public comment cards on item 20. Public comment is now closed on item 20. With that, we'll adopt the motion. Any more reports, or is that complete on this item?
We have the next item also.
Okay. And for clarification, on item number 20, the General Services Department report has recommendations. Do you want to approve those?
Yes,
as
thank
well?
you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 21.
And item 21 is also a Department of General Services report in response to motion Parks Labange relative to a proposed city policy for off-peak delivery and pickup of commodities similar to the County of Los Angeles off-peak delivery of commodities policy.
This is also another motion that's been around that went away and came back. And it's pretty much asking that the Department of General Services review the County of Los Angeles off-peak commodity delivery policy. And the Department of General Services has reviewed the policy, determined that it would be a good thing for the city of Los Angeles, and we've pretty much already started to implement the language in our current contracts and one-time purchase orders. And we're just looking for an instruction from council to instruct other city departments to include the language for their departmental deliveries as well.
What is considered off-peak?
9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Those non-high traffic hours.
Okay, so before the morning traffic and rush
Before,
hour
right.
and after. But if they're going to get there at 9, they probably were in the morning rush hour.
Probably.
That's why I found that as kind of odd. I was assuming it would be a little bit tighter, maybe like 11 to 3, which would make it hard for all the vendors, especially our docks and our delivery facilities, to accept everybody lining up at the same time.
That would work. We just utilize the county's policy and,
Yeah,
you know,
no, I don't have a problem with it. I just thought it was kind of odd that 9 o'clock seems to butting up against rush hour, at least in this big city. But that is the policy of the county.
Right.
Did the county have any feedback to themselves that we were able to look at as far as whether or not they feel that it's successful or it improved anything whatsoever?
we didn't see any feedback of that nature.
So somebody over there at the county thought it was a good idea, they're utilizing it, nobody seems to be complaining too much?
Not that we've heard. We can ask further, but we haven't heard any negative or positive feedback either way.
Yeah. Well, if it was Bill Fujioka's idea, they're not going to tell you anything bad about it, so.
I can't
I hope he's
say,
listening.
I can't say we have implemented this program over the last few months, and we have not had any negative feedback on our end.
So nothing negative, but we honestly don't know if it created any massive improvements of any kind other than.
To be totally blunt, I don't know how we would measure that. I honestly don't know how we would measure that.
Okay.
No, the only thing I can think of is backing up of stuff on the docks or what have you, because maybe they shortened the delivery timeframe.
From our operations, we have not seen that.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm just thinking of anecdotal things that come to mind, but only the people operating and receiving goods and stuff would know whether or not there's any impact.
We operate the warehouses throughout the city, and we have not encountered that at all.
Okay, all right. Okay, maybe it is a great idea. Any questions?
No.
Okay, we're on item number 21. Is anybody here to speak to item 21? See nobody come forward. Item 21, we'll adopt that item and the GSD recommendations. Now we go to item number 22.
And item number 22 is a discussion with representatives of the mayor and the chief legislative analyst relative to an update on the state legislative program.
You don't want to hear what happened in Sacramento? They did all their shenanigans, man, by Tuesday night at midnight. Go ahead.
He wants to hear about one of them, actually.
Still, they don't have a budget.
Okay, why don't you start with the one that Mr. Zine is interested in?
This was the mobile billboards issue.
The what?
The mobile billboards issue?
Mobile billboards?
It's AB 2756 by Assemblymember Blumenfield. It was passed out of both houses and is in enrollment now on the way to the governor's desk.
So what is the governor going to do?
All signs indicate he will sign it. We're not anticipating any problems. He has until the end of the
They're
month.
Republican, call him.
I don't talk to him.
If you don't talk to him, I'm a Democrat. You think I want to talk to the guy? Jeez. All right. Okay, so congratulations. Your bill got to the governor's desk.
Good bill.
Wow. Cool.
Take care of a lot of the advertising trailers in the streets throughout the valley. It's not all over the city, but the valley in particular.
Okay. Well, this is a no-action item. I do have a few questions or what have you, but I wanted Mr. Zine, in case you have to leave, any questions or anything?
That service.
Yeah. Anything come to mind other than your billboard one? Congratulations.
There was, well, did he sign the paparazzi? The latest paparazzi enhancing penalties?
I don't know if he signed that yet.
Mr. Karen passed a motion.
Okay. Well, we'll check on the status of that.
It was on the news last week.
Yeah.
It enhances the penalties for paparazzi who create havoc.
So it was on the news going through the process, or on the news saying that the legislature tossed it to the governor? Do you remember?
Tossed to the governor.
Oh, so it did get to his desk. Okay, so
The
find out
other
the
bill,
number.
sir, that you've indicated interest about is SB 949 by Senator Oropeza. This would,
Find the traffic.
the traffic fine bill, it is on its way to the governor. It passed.
Which one?
SB 949.
Or Pesa?
Mhm.
Blocking
Yes.
us?
Yes.
The city is in opposition to that bill.
The governor seems to be in opposition?
And the city is. Our position is to oppose the bill. It's going to the governor
The
anyway.
governor's office?
No.
No indicators?
They just show traffic citations, but we can take control and keep the revenue instead of the state taking all the revenue, us doing all the work. You know how it is. You
And
was-
Jenny was a council member.
I know. She lost her root.
Hey, the water up there. You got too much of it, and there's something going on in the water.
Rebaptized.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm born again. Okay, anything else? Mr. Zine?
That's all I have.
So the governor does have 30 days to,
September 30th, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, one more, the motorcycle. The front cavity on the motorcycle exhaust.
That's not in the city program, but I can take a look at that and get back to you.
Did oppose it in council.
No,
Yes.
I'll take a look.
I know there was a first version, and then it kind of lingered, and then the second version.
I'll go back and take a look at
Okay.
that.
And then also the plastic bags died?
Yes. So basically, 6 of the city's sponsored bills are in enrollment on their way to the governor's desk. Our 2 redevelopment bills, which we've discussed here, our airport facilities bill, the secondary public financing for affordable housing bill, the rabies bill is chaptered and is law. There was an urgency clause, and the mobile billboards bill. Other significant bills, the plastic bags ban failed passage. That was AB 1998 by Assemblymember Brownlee, and SB 250 by Senator Flores, which is the mandatory spay-neuter statewide, also failed. A package of bills that have been nicknamed the Bell bills that were created in response to the scandal at the city of Bell. 3 of them are heading to the governor's desk. One of them limits the amount of earnable compensation that a public employee can use in calculating pension benefits. AB 827 would prohibit certain employees from entering into contracts that contain automatic provisions like automatic renewal or automatic increases in compensation. And AB 900, which is by Assemblymember De Leon, would require the city of Bell to pay the county of LA, it's the property tax refund bill.
So who was the author on that one?
De Leon, Assembly.
De Leon, not De La Torre. De La Torre had various bills. So De Leon's bill on the property tax refund, but that has to do with the illegal or miscalculated charges, overcharges to the residents of Bell, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that
county
without that bill, whatever money was calculated that should not have been taken from the property owners in Bell would have been refunded excuse me, it wouldn't have been refunded, it would have been returned, but to the education system. So what that bill basically does, it says, no, that money should go back to the actual people who they took the money from.
Right. The
Right.
taxpayers, yes.
So it's actually a pretty simple and direct bill, a pretty righteous bill, I think.
Wasn't there something about bankruptcy they were trying to block cities?
That one died.
That one died. 155, AB,
Mendoza.
SB.
Mendoza, yeah.
Mhm.
That one didn't make it to the governor.
No.
Didn't get out of the
It's the
legislature.
second time he tried this one.
Yeah. One bill that came up at the very last minute while the council was on recess was AB 1699 that had an appropriation approval for senior funding. It was pass-through funding from the federal government to the state to local governments. That failed, and that has negative implications on Department of Aging programs for senior lunches and possibly the Title V senior job program. So we're looking into that to see if there's a way to get that addressed
Well, they're
in
going
the
to have a
state
budget
budget.
process.
Yes. So we need to follow up on that
And it is
in
funding.
what's that?
So it is funding, so there is a nexus for them to handle it in a special session.
Yes.
Have
Yep.
they called a special session yet?
No.
What, the governor is going to wait till after September 30th, or what?
Well, he's leaving for
November
Asia,
3rd.
I think, on Wednesday for 10 days, so things are going to be in limbo for quite a while.
I heard him say he wasn't going to call it, just going to let it ride.
Yeah.
So the state will go without a budget until they reconvene? No, they're only going to reconvene for one day this year to get sworn in, and that's it. And then they go back home until January.
Yeah.
Well, in November, the election. So
Yeah.
the-
Oh, till after November?
Next governor will have to deal.
Yeah.
No, but he'll be governor through January. The governor, the legislature gets sworn in on the first Monday of December, and then the governor gets sworn in like some umpteen of January. Usually, it's kind of like the president. The legislature gets sworn in earlier than the president. So after the elections in November, the Schwarzenegger will still be governor in November and December and part of January. So, but as far as we can tell right now, he's indicating that, or shall I say, he's not speaking to calling the legislature back. And any news on when the state runs out of money?
I can check on that. I
I mean, they're already talking about IOUs already.
Right.
But really, really running out of money, where all of a sudden they can't even pay for anything, much less their vendors.
I can check on that and get back to you.
Yeah, if you could find that out for us, because for some reason this year had more flexibility on that point than last year. Last year they were running out of money much quicker than this year. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's right. I think stimulus money or what have you. I guess they're playing musical chairs with big dollars, which gives them a little bit more time.
Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit more to how exactly we're going to be impacted by this federal funds that they didn't write the statute in as to how they're going to pass it through the local government?
Yeah, there's interest in, well, the Department of Aging is going to have to do the analysis of that. They're going to have to report back on how they're going to bridge that gap.
But basically, it required legislation for the state of California to disseminate the money locally.
Exactly.
So therefore, the money will go to the state,
Yeah.
but it will not be disseminated to the end users.
Yes, we're waiting for the approval of the state level for that.
Technically, the state of California will be able to sit on that money
Yeah,
for lack of a mechanism to distribute it.
exactly.
That's convenient.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're playing musical chairs with federal money.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense sitting on money for seniors in advance of an election.
Yeah, it doesn't. People get really angry when they get hungry.
Yeah, they don't get they lose their jobs. So, so this is the end of the 2009-2010 legislative program. We start in January with a fresh slate, fresh set of legislation, new legislatures, and
In other words, every bill that was in existence is now officially dead.
yes,
And the only bills that can exist until the legislature reconvenes for their new session are bills that have to do with the budget, if in fact the governor calls the legislature back.
yes.
And then there'll be X bills. right?
Yes. So what we can do is take a look at the bills that didn't pass, see what kinds of recommendations we can make for the new legislative program, the 2011-2012 program. That'll be a fresh start. And there may be some things that you would like to continue in the program, because all of everything in the city program is debt. So it's a fresh start on the city program. So.
So, who from the city was up there officially during the last few days of the legislative session?
We had Alex Esparza, who is the city's legislative representative in the city's office up there. We had 2 contract lobbyists, Andrew Antwi and Sylvia Solis as well.
I'm sorry, who are they?
Andrew Antwi and Sylvia Solis were also engaged for the city.
So they're lobbyists that have their own shingle, but we hire them on a temporary basis to look out for our interests.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any positions vacant right now in that team of people that we funded on behalf of the City of Los Angeles to watch out for our interests?
Yes, the chief legislative representative job is vacant.
Which is immediately under you?
The deputy mayor for legislative and intergovernmental relations.
So what's your title?
Director of State Relations.
So that position is, that person directs you?
We're
When they fill.
counterparts, yes.
Okay, so you're at the same level.
Mhm.
How long has that been vacant?
Since March.
Man, that's a long time.
The timing now is good with the end of session turnover of members and whatnot to find the ideal candidate.
Well, I just want to warn the mayor's office, hiring ex-legislators sometimes works out just fine, but sometimes doesn't work out well at all. So hopefully, as the mayor's office is looking to fill that position, or whatever positions are vacant, that they actually talk to the people on the ground to get the real scuttlebutt as to who's liked, who's not liked, who was, the door hit them on the way out, and the people who have respect and the proper kind of attention in Sacramento. Some do and some don't.
Noted.
Some do and some don't. They might have had a lofty title at one time, but some of them really don't know how to get along. Okay. Well, thank you for that report. Appreciate it very much. It's a no action item. Is there anybody here to make public comment on item number 22? Seeing no cards before me, no one coming forward. Public comment on item number 2 is now closed. With that, we have general public comment. Is there anybody here for general public comment? General public comment for this committee is now closed. Therefore, this committee is now adjourned. Thank you very much.